That little jolt you feel when you don't know how something's going to turn out, the lottery ticket sitting in your pocket, the game that is still too close to call, the half second after you flip a coin when it is spinning in the air and the outcome could still go either way. That feeling, that tight electric mix of hope and dread, has a name in your brain. It has a specific chemistry. And it is astonishingly, almost unbelievably old. And notice how broad that feeling really is. It isn't only about money or games. It is the flutter when you open a message you've been waiting for. The suspense as the results load. The held breath before a name is announced. A door is opened. A decision comes down. That particular electricity, the charge of an outcome that hangs in the balance that could still go either way, is one of the most distinctive sensations a human being can feel. And it is the exact same feeling, running on the exact same ancient machinery, that grips a person watching a pair of bones tumble across the ground. Whenever you lean into an unknown outcome and feel that jolt, you are touching something extremely old in yourself. We tend to think of gambling as a modern vice, a product of neon casinos, of glowing screens, of apps designed to keep your thumb tapping, something the modern world invented to separate people from their money. It isn't not even close. The pull to bet, to wager, to stake something you care about on pure, uncontrollable chance was alive and burning in human beings thousands upon thousands of years ago. Long before casinos. Long before money itself, and the reason it is so deep and so hard to shake lies in a quirk of the human brain so old and so powerful that it shapes far more of your life than just gambling. So that is the question for today. When did humans first place a bet, and why did evolution build a mind that finds pure uncertainty so utterly irresistible? I'm going to answer it honestly, including the part where this ancient wiring can turn against us. So stick with me, because this one reaches right into the machinery of your own mind. Let's start with the evidence, because it is wonderfully concrete and it begins with a small bone. If you reach into the ankle of a sheep or a goat, you'll find a particular bone, the astragalus part of the joint. It is roughly cube-shaped, small, and it has 4 distinct sides, each a slightly different shape. And for a huge span of human history, all across the ancient world, people picked up these little bones and threw them, and watched to see which of the 4 sides landed facing up. These were the world's first dice. We have found them by the countless thousands worn smooth from handling, at sites going back many thousands of years. Ancient people threw these knuckle bones in games, in contests, and in rituals, staking pride and possessions on how they fell. The dice you'd recognize today, the 6-sided cubes with their little dots, came later. A refinement of this same ancient idea. But the impulse behind them, the act of throwing an object and surrendering the result to chance, is old almost beyond measure. People were doing this before writing, before cities, before almost everything we file under the word civilization. And this wasn't confined to one corner of the world. That is what makes it so striking. Knucklebones and early dice turn up across the ancient Near East, across the Mediterranean, in Asia, in the Americas, everywhere humans settled. They seem to have found their own version of this. Different cultures used different objects, the 4-sided ankle bones, split reeds, marked sticks, carved shells, painted stones, pottery discs, but the underlying game was the same everywhere. Cast the object, watch it fall, let chance decide, and feel the thrill of the outcome. When the same idea appears independently all over the world in peoples who never met, that is a powerful sign that it springs from something deep in human nature itself. Not from one culture's invention that spread, but from something already present in all of us. And these games mattered to people. We know from ancient writings and from the objects themselves that people took them seriously, that they wagered real things, argued over the results, treasured a lucky set of bones, and returned to the game again and again. Whatever it was that gripped them, it gripped them hard, and it gripped them everywhere. The behavior we're talking about is not a footnote of history. It is one of the most persistent, widespread pastimes our species has ever had. So right away, the idea that gambling is some modern invention collapses. Betting on chance is not a product of the modern world. It is one of the oldest games our species ever played. But here is where it gets genuinely surprising, because the very earliest gambling may not have been about fun at all, and it may not have been about money. It may have been about something far deeper, a matter of life and death and of the will of the gods. Think about what randomness meant to an ancient human. Today, when we throw dice, we understand we're looking at chance physics, probability, luck, but our ancestors didn't see the world that way. To many ancient people, nothing was truly random. When an object fell one way rather than another, for reasons no one could see or predict, that wasn't chance. That was something choosing. A spirit, a god fate itself, reaching into the world and giving an answer. And so those tumbling bones became something powerful, a way to ask the universe a question. This practice, casting lots, throwing marked objects, and reading meaning into how they land, is incredibly ancient and turns up all over the world. People used it to make hard decisions, to divide property, to choose who would do a dangerous task, to settle disputes, to divine the future, to seek the will of the gods. When you couldn't decide, or didn't dare to, you threw the bones and let the higher powers decide for you. The randomness wasn't a bug, it was the whole point, because randomness was where the sacred spoke. Think about how much sense this made in their world. Imagine you're the leader of an ancient group facing an impossible choice, which of two paths to take, who among your people should be sent into danger, how to divide something precious without tearing the group apart. Whatever you decide, someone will resent it, and if it goes wrong, the blame is yours. But if you cast the bones and let the fall decide, then it isn't you who chose, it is fate, it is the gods. The decision carries an authority no human could claim, and no one can be blamed for the will of the heavens. Casting lots was, among other things, a brilliant social technology, a way to make impossible decisions and have everyone accept them. The apparent randomness gave the answer a power beyond any individual's say. So sit with how profound that is. The very same act, throwing an object and watching where it lands, sat at the root of both gambling and religion. The dice game and the sacred oracle are cousins, born from the same moment of surrendering an outcome to forces beyond your control. When our ancestors first threw those bones, they may not have been playing at all. They may have been praying at asking the gods for an answer, were, at the very beginning, almost the same act. And you can still hear the echo of it in the way people talk at a gambling table even now. The pleading, the luck, the sense of unseen forces, the feeling that something more than physics is deciding your fate. That is not a coincidence. It is a memory, buried in the language of a time when the throw really was a prayer. But that still leaves the deepest question. Why does it grip us? Why does staking something on pure chance produce that unmistakable thrill? A thrill strong enough to build games and rituals around, strong enough to survive across the entire span of human history. To answer that, we have to go inside your brain, because the thrill of the bet is not really about winning. That is the thing almost everyone gets wrong. It is about not knowing. Deep in your brain is a chemical messenger called dopamine, and it is widely misunderstood. People call it the pleasure chemical, the thing that makes you feel good when you get a reward. But that is not quite right. Dopamine is less about the reward itself and more about the anticipation of it, about prediction, and especially about uncertainty. And here is the remarkable part that scientists discovered. Your dopamine system responds most powerfully not when a reward is certain, but when it is unpredictable. When you don't know whether the reward is coming, your brain lights up far more than when you know for sure. Researchers found this by watching the brain's reward signals directly. When a reward was fully predictable, the signal was modest. But when the odds of a reward were most uncertain, a genuine coin flip could go either way. The anticipatory signal in the brain peaked. Maximum uncertainty produced maximum response. Your brain, in other words, isn't primarily rewarding you for winning. It is revving hardest during the not knowing, and the suspense before the outcome is revealed. The wanting, the craving, the lean-forward tension, that is the dopamine system doing its work, and it burns brightest precisely when the result is a genuine gamble. Think about what that means. The moment of maximum excitement isn't the win, it is the not knowing right before. It is the dice tumbling, the ball rattling, the card about to turn. Uncertainty itself is the drug. Your brain is, in a very real sense, built to find the unknown outcome thrilling. And this leads to one of the most important and unsettling facts about how our minds work. Rewards that come unpredictably are far more compelling, far more habit-forming than rewards that come reliably. A reward you get every single time becomes boring. Your brain stops paying much attention. But a reward that comes sometimes at random, unpredictably, that your brain cannot look away from. It keeps you hooked, leaning in, trying again. This is one of the most powerful principles in all of psychology, and gambling runs on it completely. Every bet is a promise of a reward that may or may not come, the exact recipe your brain finds most irresistible. Scientists have seen this again and again. When a reward is delivered on a random, unpredictable schedule, it produces the most persistent behavior of all, far more persistent than a reward that comes every time. The uncertainty is what makes it so sticky, and once you understand that, you understand something unsettling about the modern world, that an enormous number of things designed to capture your attention are built on this exact principle. The unpredictable reward is the engine underneath the slot machine. Yes, but also underneath a great many of the glowing, endlessly refreshing things we scroll and tap all day. They all borrow the same ancient hook. Gambling was simply the first and purest form of it, the place where humans first stumbled onto the fact that uncertainty itself keeps us coming back. There are other quirks stacked on top of it too. There is the near miss, when you almost win, and instead of feeling the loss, your brain reacts almost as if you'd won, firing you up to try again. 2 out of 3 matching symbols hits you harder than 3 that don't match at all, even though both are, in fact, losses. It makes no logical sense. A miss is a miss, but the brain treats almost as so close, try again, and the pull to continue grows stronger, not weaker, after a near win, and there is the deep human hunger for patterns, the part of us convinced we can spot a streak, sense that we're due, find the hidden order in what is actually pure noise. Our ancestors were pattern-finding machines, brilliantly tuned to spot the real patterns in nature that meant food or danger, but aimed at the pure randomness of a game. That same gift misfires, producing the powerful, stubborn illusion that we can somehow read, predict, or control the uncontrollable. The gambler who feels a win coming is running ancient pattern detection software on a problem that has no pattern at all. So now step back and ask the real evolutionary question. If this wiring can pull us toward risking what we have on pure chance, which sounds like a terrible survival strategy, then why do we have it at all? Why would evolution build a brain that finds uncertainty so magnetic? And the answer is that this wiring was never about gambling. Gambling is just what happens when something else, something deeply useful, gets pointed at a dice game, because our ancestors lived in a world saturated with uncertainty and risk, where survival depended on being willing to act anyway. Should you cross the open ground to reach that fruit tree, not knowing if a predator waits? Should you follow the herd over the ridge, gambling that the hunt pays off? Should you try the new territory, the untested path, the uncertain plan? Life was a constant stream of bets, real ones, with real stakes, and the humans who could tolerate uncertainty, who could feel the pull of a possible reward and act on it despite the risk, were often the ones who found the food, the new lands, the opportunities that the timid missed. That hunger for the uncertain payoff, that willingness to stake something on a chance, was not a flaw. It was one of the engines of human boldness. It is part of what drove us across the planet and into every corner of the earth. And think about how essential this really was. A creature that only ever acted when the outcome was guaranteed would have starved. There are no guarantees in the wild. Every hunt might fail, every journey might end badly, every new place might hold danger or might hold plenty. The animals that survive in a world like that are the ones willing to place bets, to invest effort into uncertain outcomes, to keep trying when the payoff comes only sometimes. In fact, a brain that finds uncertain rewards, especially motivating, is a brain perfectly designed for a world where persistence through uncertainty is the key to survival. The very wiring that keeps a gambler at the table is the same wiring that kept an ancient forager searching one more valley, casting the net one more time, following the tracks a little farther. The unpredictable reward that hooks us in a casino was, for most of our history, the unpredictable reward of the food, the hunt, the search, and being hooked on it kept our ancestors alive. The thrill you feel at the moment of a bet is, in a sense, the ancient thrill of the hunt, of the risk, of the leap into the unknown that our survival was built on. Gambling takes that magnificent, essential piece of wiring, the courage to act under uncertainty, and pulls it into a game where the uncertainty is manufactured and the stakes are pure chance. And here is where I have to be honest, because it matters. That same ancient wiring, which served our ancestors so well, is exactly what makes gambling so dangerous for some people today. Modern gambling is often carefully engineered to hit those deep buttons as hard as possible. The unpredictable rewards, the near misses, the lights and sounds timed to your brain's chemistry. It is an ancient survival system being deliberately triggered over and over in a way nature never intended. So if gambling ever grips someone too tightly, it is worth understanding that this isn't simply a failure of willpower or character. It is a very old, very powerful part of the human brain being pushed in ways it was never built to withstand. That understanding matters both for compassion toward others and for being honest with ourselves. The person caught in it isn't weak. They're human, running ancient software that modern machines have learned to exploit, and knowing that is the first step toward treating the struggle with the seriousness and kindness it deserves, rather than the contempt it too often gets. But here is the part I most want you to carry away from this. The pull you feel toward the uncertain outcome. The reason the coin in the air, the too close game, the unopened result all give you that little electric jolt is not a modern weakness, and it is not a character flaw. It is one of the oldest and most powerful pieces of the human mind. It is the same wiring that let your ancestors face a world of pure uncertainty and act anyway, that let them take the risks, make the leaps, and chase the uncertain rewards that survival demanded. That courage in the face of the unknown is written deep into you. Gambling is simply what happens when that ancient essential courage gets pointed at a rolling pair of bones. So let's go back to that little bone with four sides, thousands of years old, tumbling across the dirt while a crowd holds its breath. When did humans first gamble? Almost as soon as we were human, because the thing that gambling grips isn't some modern vice grafted onto us. It is the deep, ancient wiring that made us bold enough to survive an uncertain world. Every time you feel that flicker of hope and dread before an unknown outcome, you're feeling something 100,000 years old, the mind of a creature built to face the unknown and to lean forward into it anyway. So here's my question for you, and I really do want to know, where do you feel that pull toward uncertainty in your own life? Not just in games, but in the risks, the leaps, the uncertain chances you've taken. And does it change anything to know that the thrill of the unknown is one of the most ancient feelings you carry? Tell me in the comments. I read them, and the way people reflect on questions like this, on the ancient forces still moving quietly inside us, is always the best part. And one gentle note before I go, if gambling is something that has become a struggle for you or someone you care about, please know that support is out there, and reaching for it is a sign of strength, not weakness. Until then, take care of yourselves and of each other, and be kind to the restless, risk-taking mind you inherited, and I'll see you soon.